One organization said the schedule was the most thoughtfully constructed in the history of the World Cup. Another organization, representing the players who actually have to play it, called it unsustainable. Same tournament, same calendar, same heat. Two completely opposite responses. And the gap between those two responses is the entire story of the relationship between FIFA and FIFPRO heading into the knockout rounds. So, which side does history vote with? Stick with me. The answer is more interesting than you would think. Let me start with FIFA's claim. In the weeks before the opening match, FIFA's official communications described the 2026 tournament schedule as the result of more than 2 years of consultation with stakeholders, including national federations, host cities, broadcasters, and player welfare bodies. The framing was careful. The framing was professional. Gianni Infantino, in remarks summarized by Reuters during the pre tournament press cycle, said that the expansion to 48 teams and 104 matches represented a generational opportunity for global football to grow. He spoke about inclusion, he spoke about access, he spoke about giving smaller nations the chance to participate at the highest level of the sport. It was a good speech. It was on the metrics he chose to emphasize defensible, now place that beside FIFPRO's response. FIFPRO is the Global Players Union. According to a position paper published in June, summarized by Goal.com and Fox Sports, FIFPRO had reached a cooperation agreement with FIFA earlier in the year that included provisions on workload, transfer reform, and player welfare. The agreement was framed as a breakthrough. Mandatory release clauses, reduced transfer fees in certain categories, a direct cut of transfer revenue for players earning below a specified threshold, 5% of transfer fees flowing to the players themselves in a system FIFPRO highlighted as modeled on Spanish football and now being globalized. That part of the agreement was real progress. But on the schedule, on the actual calendar of matches the players were about to be asked to play, the agreement was thinner. FIFPRO continued to publicly express concern about workload, particularly in light of an expanded Club World Cup, an expanded continental tournament calendar, and now an expanded 48 team World Cup. The position was clear. The schedule the players were about to play on top of their domestic seasons was beyond what the human body could sustain at peak performance over consecutive years. Two organizations, the same facts available to both, two completely opposite conclusions. FIFA said the schedule was a generational opportunity. FIFPRO said the schedule was unsustainable. Think about what that means. The gap is not about ideology, it is not about politics, it is about who pays the cost. FIFA pays the cost of broadcasting deals, sponsorship revenue, host city infrastructure agreements, and ticket sales. FIFPRO pays the cost of muscle injuries, career shortening, recovery deficits, and the slow grind of a sport that asks more of its participants every single year. Same tournament, different ledger. Now look at what each organization actually did with that gap. FIFA's response was to keep building. The federation signed broadcasting deals, expanded the format, increased the prize money. The prize money expansion, summarized by NBC New York and Sports Illustrated, took the total pool to roughly $654 million, with $50 million for the champion, $33 million for the runner-up, and a guaranteed $12.5 million per qualified team. The pool is approximately 65% larger than the equivalent in Qatar 2022. That is FIFA's response. More money, more matches, more inclusion, more growth. FIFPRO's response was different. According to Reuters and FIFPRO's own communications, the union published guidance to player representatives about how to manage workload, including recommendations on rest, recovery, and medical intervention. The union supported Virgil van Dijk's public remarks calling the schedule unsustainable. The union, quietly in the background, briefed individual federations on the recovery protocols their players should be following between matches. One body responded by selling more product. The other body responded by trying to protect the producers of the product from being broken by their own success. That is the contrast. That is the structural truth of this tournament. Now, to be fair to FIFA, the steel man of their position is real and worth stating clearly. The expansion to 48 teams was approved by the FIFA Council in 2017, well before the current tournament was scheduled. The format was sold to member federations on the basis of expanded inclusion, and 48 teams, particularly the additional African, Asian, and CONCACAF places, represent real, measurable expansion of the sport's global footprint. Without that expansion, several nations now participating in this World Cup, including some that have produced the most memorable storylines of the group stage, would not be here. The argument that the expansion has been worth the trade off is not a stupid argument. It is the argument FIFA has chosen to make, and it has at least one foot on solid ground. But here is the counterfact: the expansion was sold as inclusive. The schedule it produced is exclusive. It is exclusive of every player who is too tired to play in the 75th minute. It is exclusive of every starting fullback who has to be subbed off at 60 because the data says he cannot continue. It is exclusive of the genuine quality of the football that the tournament was supposed to celebrate. Inclusion at the federation level, exclusion at the player level. The numbers say one thing, the bodies say another. That is the gap that FIFPRO has been pointing at for months, and it is the gap that FIFA's communications have, with one or two exceptions, refused to acknowledge. Now move forward to the moment in the tournament where the contrast becomes most visible. It is the post-match interview. The captain stands in front of the camera. He says all the right things. He thanks the fans. He praises the opposition. He pivots carefully to the schedule. He uses the word recovery. He uses the word rotation. He uses the word fatigue. He does not directly criticize FIFA. He does not directly criticize the format. But the language is there, and the journalists in the room understand it. And the headlines the next morning carry the message that the captain wanted carried without him having to say it explicitly. That is what is happening every single match week in the press conferences of the major footballing nations at this World Cup. Captains and senior players, briefed by FIFPRO representatives, are speaking carefully about workload. The press is picking it up, the fans are reading it, the narrative is building. And FIFA, on the other side of the contrast, continues to publish triumphant attendance figures and viewership numbers and sponsorship updates as if the conversation about the players' bodies is not happening at all. Same facts, two responses. One organization is selling, the other organization is warning. Now think about which response history will validate. In 2026, in the middle of the tournament, the selling response is winning. The matches are being played, the stadiums are filling, mostly the ratings are real, the sponsors are happy. FIFA's communications are aging well in the present tense. The expansion is producing what FIFA promised it would produce in commercial terms. But history is not measured in the middle of the tournament. History is measured in 5 years. In 10, in the careers of the players who came through this World Cup with the data on their bodies and the injury records and the soft tissue scarring and the cognitive load that comes from playing 7 matches in 26 days at a level of intensity their bodies were not designed to sustain. The Spanish Journal of Sports Medicine has been publishing peer reviewed work on cumulative workload at international tournaments for almost a decade. The work points in one direction: more matches, more injuries, more career shortening. The data is not new. The data has been there the whole time. FIFPRO's response, the warning response, is the one that aligns with that data. Now, here is the part of the contrast that almost nobody is talking about, because it is genuinely uncomfortable to say out loud. Even within FIFPRO, even within the player representatives, there is a tension. Some senior players, particularly those at the very top of the commercial pyramid, benefit financially from the expanded calendar. More matches mean more visibility. More visibility means more sponsorship value. More sponsorship value means more income, both for the players and for the agents and federations around them. The economic structure of the modern game rewards the very expansion that FIFPRO is publicly warning about. That tension is real. That tension is unresolved. And it is why FIFPRO's response, even at its most pointed, has stopped short of the kind of direct confrontation with FIFA that, in another era, might have produced a player led boycott or a coordinated refusal. Same facts, same calendar, same heat, and the union itself is partially constrained by the same commercial gravity that has pulled FIFA into its current position. That is the unflattering symmetry at the heart of the story. Neither organization is fully free. FIFA is constrained by broadcasting and sponsorship deals signed years in advance. FIFPRO is constrained by the fact that its members benefit in the short term from the very calendar that is breaking them in the long term. The contrast between the two responses is real, but the trap they are both inside is the same trap. The institution that scheduled the tournament said the schedule was thoughtful. The union that represents the players said the schedule was unsustainable. History, in my opinion, will side with the union. Because the data is on the union side, and because the players' bodies will eventually deliver the verdict in the form of injury reports, retirement ages, and the long, quiet careers of athletes who never quite reach their full second decade of professional football because the calendar consumed them first. That is the contrast. That is what one organization did and what the other organization did, with the same facts available to both. And the verdict, when it arrives, will not be a press release. It will be a generation of players whose primes were shorter than they should have been, and a generation of fans who, in retrospect, will wonder how the sport allowed itself to be steered into the shape it ended up in. So, what do you think? Is FIFPRO doing enough to push back, or is the union itself caught inside the same commercial structure that drives FIFA's decisions? Will the verdict of history be as harsh as I am suggesting, or am I overstating the contrast? I read everyone. Let me know your view in the comments. If you found this worth your time, a like helps more than you would think. Subscribe if you enjoy thoughtful football coverage. Football at this scale is never just a tournament. It is a moment in time. There is one more layer to this contrast that I want to leave you with because it is the one that has stayed with me longest. The Athletic ran a feature in mid-June in which several anonymous national team doctors speaking on background said that the conversations they were having inside their medical staffs were not about preventing injuries at this World Cup, They were about managing injuries. The framing had already shifted. The injuries were treated in the medical staff conversations as a near certainty. The question was not whether they would occur. The question was which player, which match, which knockout round. That framing tells you everything about where the gap between FIFA's communications and FIFPRO's warnings has already settled. The institution is selling a celebration. The medical staffs are quietly preparing for triage. And the contrast between the two postures is, in the end, the entire reason this tournament will be remembered very differently in 5 years than it is being remembered in real time today.